Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast Under Your Bed. It's October. We're in the midst of it. We got a fun film to review for y'all today, The Witch. But before we get to that, sitting across from me is your hostess, Taylor.
Hey.
I'm your host, CJ, and we are super excited to review a personal favorite of mine. I think it's pretty high on the list for Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
All right. The Witch.
No, it's solid. It's a very solid movie.
Yeah, for sure. From 2015. If you're unfamiliar with this, it's a film set in early America in the 1600s. A family ousted by their religious sect attempts to build a new life. One that is rudely interrupted by a witch in the woods. Or maybe not. Or maybe not. This film is just oozing with style. It knows exactly what it is. And it's well produced and well acted. Walk us through some of this cast, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a cool one too, because this is I believe this was Anya Taylor-Joy's first big film. And even though she doesn't think she crushed it, she absolutely crushes it. She is really our protagonist, Thomasin. She just is amazing. And if you are not already familiar, she's the star of The Queen's Gambit, The Menu. Most recently was Princess Peach in the Super Mario Brothers cartoon movie. She is all around the board. She crushes it, kills it. Everything she does, she's amazing. But that doesn't mean she's the only all-star in our cast, because we also have Kate Dickie playing her mom, Catherine. You might know her best. I would say most people would know her from Game of Thrones, but she's also in The Northman and was recently in The Green Knight. Playing the dad of the group, the patriarch is, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna say it confidently and hope it works out.
Send it.
Ralph Ineson.
Oh yeah, nailed it.
I'm gonna go with it. Playing William. Also, again, I just love when people are in similar projects. He also did The Northman and also did Game of Thrones and also did one of my personal favorite shows, Chernobyl. Love it. And then this one actually really surprised me. Playing the kind of preteen brother is Harvey Scrimshaw. He does not have a ton of credits moving forward from this, which shocks me because he's really, really good. And then I feel like we get this cheeky little cameo by Julian Richings, who plays a governor at the beginning, but he's in so many credits, you guys, but Survival of the Dead, Channel Zero, Umbrella Academy. And then we do have two little twinsies, Mercy and Jonas, but also shockingly, kids did not go on to do anything from this, and they were killer little actors for being
Hell
I don't know what,
yeah.
6 or something. Maybe even I might be overshooting that. Actually, I think they're probably younger than 6. But
I think we're missing an important cast member here, which is
who am I
Philip
missing?
the Goat.
My bad. You're right. The real star.
All right, but equally as impressive is the crew. This was directed by Robert Eggers. This was his first feature, y'all. Really,
wow.
In his early 30s, just crushing it. He's got a pretty deep background in stage and set design. So you can clearly see that playing out here, right? It was also written by him. Edited by Louise Ford, also going on to The Northman and The Lighthouse. She also did Bad Education, crushed it as well. The editing is phenomenal. Composition by Mark Corvin, also The Lighthouse, In the Tall Grass, The Terror. Clearly Robert Eggers just found his A squad and was like, we're going to keep going. Let's keep going.
I love that so much.
Similarly, cinematography coming from Jaron Blaschke, and again, Northman, Lighthouse, Knock at the Cabin. Super loved this. I thought that the crew brought it on every level. This is what I sort of see as the new era of cinema, where you have these sort of smaller crews that are a little more nimble with these really strong styles, using lightweight setups in terms of their equipment and camera and lighting gear, to just create really strong stories that can pull you into a unique world and create an emotional roller coaster that is just enthralling and exciting to watch. So I love this generation of filmmaking and really excited to continue seeing them grow.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about even you get kind of similar vibes when you start seeing something like Midsommar and stuff, and not because we think like the two directors are like copying off each other or whatever, but like you said, it's kind of the atmosphere and the world that they create and the meticulous nature that goes behind both of them and everything they do, down to like period accurate, like undergarments, even like everything is so purposeful as well. Like everything, every little detail is there for a reason. And I just think that's like kind of a newer thing where especially we're counteracting with like, you got Disney putting in like AI, like people who don't jive with the rest of the background. And then you've got these guys out there who are like, every little stone is this specific thing for a specific reason. And it's just such a pleasure visually. And like you said, the atmosphere is completely there and you're just engrossed in it. And again, that's just another reason to be like, fuck digital, like, fuck all this AI stuff. Go do practical because it totally pays off.
Yeah, and you know, there were some digital effects in here, and actually they were, again, like always, some of the moments in the film where I thought were the weakest, my you know, personally is what I thought, where I kind of wondered, well, should they have gone there? Should they not have, in terms of, you know, the story regarding those VFX moments, but also
at least it's
the
a
VFX
garnish.
themselves. Yes.
Versus like being the focal point, you know, like, but I get what you mean. Those did stand out more as the like more clunkier parts to what is otherwise like a pretty fucking great movie. So.
And, you know, probably the like only like negative criticism I would have with this movie, you know, cinematography was much, on point, composition was on point. I think this is a movie that stylistically, a lot of people may not enjoy just out of personal taste. You know, it's a period piece.
Sure.
They're speaking that old English. So at times you're trying to keep up with the dialogue. But I found, you know, the characters captivating, the character dynamics just enthralling and tense. And it's a great movie for wondering, okay, what is paranormal, what is supernatural, or what is hysteria, what is you know, maybe conjecture. So a lot of fun, that sort of cat and mouse play that kept me interested and coming back to rewatch and rewatch.
100%. And I love that it has that kind of like you said, to the hysteria point, like it gives you Salem witch trial vibes without really fully diving into that. But it almost kind of, you can see where people got these ideas, where they ran with these ideas, why what was going on was impacting everybody's like decision making. And as you noted, like family dynamics, and it's just a lot more complex, which I really enjoy. And for being such a complicated film and a really nuanced film, it has still got a nice short 1.5 runtime. And I am praising the shit out of that because I am obsessed with an 1.5 runtime. Bless anybody that does it.
Yeah. You know, all right. So we're making some comparisons to Midsommar. You know, it's another slow burn movie. And that is like over 2-hour runtime, if I recall. So you can still find that slow pacing in a 90-minute flick. It does not, you know, this movie, it's a slow burn, but it still keeps you interested. And you know, it ain't going to require an enormous commitment, but I promise you're going to want to rewatch this. So maybe we get to the bottom line here, Taylor. Set me up. Where do you want to start? Under the bed rating or overall?
Oh, overall's easier,
okay,
but
okay.
I think overall, let's go with the easy one first.
What are you giving it?
I'm absolutely giving this a solid 3. Like, it is a very solid 3 for me. Like I said, it's funny because
for Taylor to dip into the 4s.
Vincent Price apparently a 4. No, there's like I said, that's a real short list for me, and I only will dull that out usually if either it's like cinematic, like just everything is so on point, or it's a personal favorite. This one I thoroughly enjoy. As you said, you are correct. It is quite high on my list. It's just not maybe that top echelon, but it's very high up. It's a really well done film. There is just not much to complain about. There's just, I don't know what it is. There's maybe just something that doesn't quite push me to the 4, but it is an extremely well-made film. It's very atmospheric. I respect the meticulous nature of it. The acting is so good, and it would not work without such a strong cast because we're really limited to these 5-6 characters, really. So just total respect for this film. I think it's really good. I'm going to take a guess and just say you might be rating it slightly higher than me.
This is a solid 4 in my opinion. I think I loved everything about it. I really, this is the style of filmmaking that I love. I thought it was visceral at times. It was guttural. It had rich dynamics, interesting story. It had a psychological component, a supernatural component. This was also a movie that when I first watched, really haunted me. So, I mean, to jump to that, I'm a little torn. I think I'm going to call this a 3 monsters under your bed in terms of scare factor. Something about watching this the first time, the witch was so not hokey in any way, just this raw, visceral character that was super disturbing. And when I'm alone at night, flipping the lights off, that's who's haunting me in the back of my mind, right? Is this creepy old woman. So I love how such a simplistic film in a lot of ways was able to bring me to that. Rewatching, it started becoming less scary. So whereas there are a few movies out there upon rewatch are as scary as the first time. And this, didn't quite get to that level, but overall 4 overall rating, 3 monsters under my bed in terms of scariness. Where's it fall for you, Taylor? I'm super interested. How scary is this?
It's such a struggle because, like you said, I really do think that it's not. It lends itself well to rewatch in terms of getting more out of it, but in terms of scariness, I think you're right. It just doesn't quite have the same effect after the first round, and it's hard because it's not this blatantly in your face scary thing. It's more of an unnerving feeling. Again, it's really hinges on that kind of creating an atmosphere than having big scares or anything. I mean, the situation at the beginning is probably the most horrific part in my mind.
Right.
That's horrifying. I kind of forgot how much they did and didn't show in it. So rewatching it, I was like, oh boy. And we'll obviously get to that with the spoilers section more, so you'll understand what we're talking about specifically. I struggle with it because it just doesn't, like I said, for me, it's not that I think a movie is bad or anything. It's just, am I thinking about it afterwards? Is it going to haunt my dreams? And I even watched this late last night, and it did not. But it feels kind of gross to give it a 1. Something doesn't feel right about that. So I'm going to be very kind because the movie's really good, and give it a 2. But I have to preface by saying, it might be a first time reaction is a 2, and a rewatch gets done to more of a 1 for me.
That's interesting. This might be the most disparity we've had in our ratings.
Yeah, it's true.
Super interesting. But yeah, that seems pretty fair. I would definitely throw out there that this is a movie that you probably want to sit down with yourself or a significant other and watch when you have time to really focus on the movie. It's dark, it's quiet, because again, like you were saying, that atmosphere is so essential to this film. I know my brother, for example, he watched this on his school's campus. Or no, I'm sorry, this was like at a theater with a bunch of teenagers in the audience.
Oh, no.
And they were just like laughing and cracking jokes, and it really ruined the experience for him, because you do have to like come at it through a mature lens. Otherwise, I could see you like being like, "Oh, they're speaking funny," or "Oh, look at the like creepy old woman, haha." So if you
Boobs.
suspend your if you suspend your disbelief a hair and enter the world of this film, you're gonna have a great time. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree. I think this is one that's 100% worth the watch. But again, with a little note being like, are you willing to sit down and watch something? Even though the runtime is short, it is a little bit of an exercise because it is a slow burn. They are using very, very period specific language throughout the entire thing. So some of it can be a struggle at times. I'd say for the most part, I didn't have that hard time, but I have heard that criticism and I think it's valid. So fair enough. If that's not something you can get on board with, then I would probably skip this. But if it's something you can sit down and watch, or with a serious group of friends who really enjoy cinema, you are not going to go wrong. Because this is a very well-made film with a very good cast, very good composition, very good cinematography. Like, you're not going to be disappointed there. You just have to be willing to kind of take it slow and take it seriously.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, we have a lot to discuss in this film, so please stick around for the deep dive. We think you're going to enjoy it.
Welcome to the podcast Under Your Bed. There'll be drinks, critique, and perhaps a few murders. You're all invited, but once the podcast has begun, there's no way out. The ghosts are waiting, so won't you join me for the podcast Under Your Bed?
Oh, Taylor, yours was so good. That was straight out of The Wizard of Oz, yeah. I love it. Well,
nailed it.
I think hopefully we didn't blow your all's eardrums out like we normally do. So maybe you.
I think that was better. We probably made some friends on this one, I'd say.
All right. So you're able to still hear us, and we can carry on with the deep dive critique, y'all. But before we get there, we have, just like this film is a fine wine of cinematic flavor, we have
I like that. Good connecting there.
Be creative and story-like. Anyways, we have a mulled wine for you today as our drink. If you're not familiar, that's basically just like a spiced wine. You take any wine of your choosing, and
red wine.
Yes, red wine. That is a quality clarification. And you can either use a mulled wine spice pack, toss it in, heat it up over the stove, or you can use your own blend of spices. And basically, once that kind of marinates, toss it in a wine glass, strain it, and throw some orange slices in there, and you have a delicious. Warm is a nice way to go for your fall evenings, or in this case, fall morning. I guess it's afternoon.
Yeah, right, afternoon.
But it's an easy, delicious drink that it's kind of like warming to the soul.
Oh yeah, I love that. So we got this one. I love that they named it the Black Phillip too, which is just perfect. But got this idea from the Shaken Not Scared podcast,
yes.
Who you guys may or may not remember that we used for Black Christmas. They did a lovely syrup, which I will be using again this year. But I was able to. They do, and I like it because I don't usually go this route with cocktails and stuff, so it's kind of nice to mix it up. But yeah, I threw in a cinnamon stick and like a blood orange dehydrated slice in mine because I was able to cheat because I have a local company winery that makes this, and I was like, yes, I just get to put it on the stove. So I jazzed mine up with a cinnamon stick, just give it a little zhuzh.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
It's a little on the sweeter side. I don't know if CJ, if yours tastes as sweet because you made yours, which good on ya.
Velvet Devil is what I went for. Kept with a
I love it.
of the Wiccan demonic side of this. I couldn't find any witch wine to go with, but 2020 Merlot from Washington. It's not super sweet, and I love it's just like cozy. I want to be on a front porch with this wrapped in a blanket,
watching the leaves fall. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Nice and cozy.
Yep, that's right. So it's a great way to watch this movie if you want to sip on some of this. But to refresh everybody's memory, Taylor, walk us through this spoiler summary review.
All right, guys, just remember, this is it. It's total spoilers from here on out. We highly recommend you go watch this movie first, but if you need a refresher, here we go. So we open on a family consisting of husband and wife, William and Catherine, their eldest daughter, Thomasin, their preteen son, Caleb. They've got the two twin kiddos, Mercy and Jonas, and a baby named Samuel. They live in New England in the 1630s. And this is alarming. Their group gets kicked out of their religious community for being too religious. So just take a moment to soak that in and let it guide where we're going from here. Families subsequently settle on an isolated plot of land next to the woods.
As if they're not completely surrounded by that in early America.
I know, in New England. Yeah, right. Everywhere you go. Witches abound. All right. Whilst going about daily chores, Thomasin plays a game of peekaboo with Samuel, during which he disappears. We then cut to a really decrepit elderly woman raising a knife to the baby, and thankfully... Yeah, that is a common way of saying it. And thankfully, we then cut to her smearing blood all over her body, which causes her to levitate. Catherine, yeah, what a hottie. Just think of The Shining, and you're like halfway there. Catherine is distraught by Samuel's disappearance and spends her days crying while the rest of the family attempt to carry on. Trouble's on the horizon, though, as William admits to trading Catherine's prized silver cup for hunting supplies, and the twins state that they have been talking to Black Phillip, the family's goat. Thomasin jokingly counters this by saying she's a witch, she knows Black Phillip, and she's been working with Satan. As you do, you're an older sister, you gotta pick on your siblings.
Indeed.
That evening, Thomasin is accused by Catherine of misplacing the silver cup and overhears her parents saying that they plan to send her away for monetary gain. Caleb and Thomasin head to the woods the next morning to check on their hunting traps. Thomasin is accidentally knocked unconscious, and Caleb finds the family dog disemboweled and then happens upon a beautiful witch. Also, giving that Shining vibe there. Yep. We then cut to Catherine blaming Thomasin for all of their misfortunes, and William, finally, being an adult male, finally decides to admit to selling the cup. Catherine, unsurprisingly, does not receive this confession well and accuses William of damning the family for his lies. That evening, Thomasin happens upon a naked Caleb who appears traumatized and sickly. The family attempt to nurse him to health by bloodletting and praying. I mean, both those things seem super helpful.
I'd do it today.
Really, don't take him to a doctor. Why would you do that? The twins continue to harass Thomasin, now calling her a witch, and things appear to be real bad, with Thomasin finding deceased fetuses in their eggs and blood in the milk of their animals.
Ew.
Delicious. The next day, Caleb dies, with the twins blaming Thomasin and subsequently passing out. William, unsure of who to blame, because this is parent of the year, locks all the remaining children in with Black Phillip and the rest of the livestock.
That's a little twisted, yo. I have some unique parenting techniques myself, but I have not done that yet.
Try this one next time. See how it works out for you. See what happens. While burying Caleb, William admits that his pride has caused the demise of his family and begs for forgiveness. Again, kind of a too little, too late situation. Catherine then sees Caleb and Samuel have returned, and while nursing Samuel, we see she is in fact hallucinating. She is not nursing a baby. Instead, she is being pecked at by a raven. That is some imagery that you cannot get out of your head.
That shit don't leave.
Yeah, the children, meanwhile, see a witch drinking the blood of a goat. The next morning, William finds dead livestock and the twins missing. Before he has a chance to properly react, he is gored to death, I believe that is the correct terminology, by Black Phillip.
Yeah.
Thomasin attempts to explain what happened to Catherine. However, she is unwilling to listen, calling Thomasin bewitched and blaming her for William's death. Catherine attacks Thomasin, and in self-defense, Thomasin bludgeons Catherine to death. Very understandable there on that one. Yeah. Alone and in desperation, Thomasin pleads for Black Phillip to speak to her. He does, in fact, and turns into a man, asking Thomasin if she would like to live deliciously and also eat butter, which is a big deal. Really big deal. Thomasin agrees to his will, undresses, and writes her name in a book. She then heads towards the woods. Thomasin, accompanied by the back-to-goat form of Black Phillip, finds a coven of witches around a fire. She joins them and begins to levitate, smiling and laughing, and that is the end of the witch.
And
they look like they're having a good time.
Floats off into the moonlight.
They were just digging it out there.
Looks like a great time, man. I
kind of want to join.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
You know, I do think the wine is appropriate drink because I know that early on in winemaking, they did use mushrooms in the wine, and that actually wine hallucinogenic mushrooms became outlawed early because of its association to Wiccan religions by the Catholic Church.
No way! Yeah, look at that little piece of history. I like it.
Yeah, it is kind of fun, and I think is also kind of leads to the story of this film, like how much of this. Originally there's that cat and mouse play, if you will, psychologically, of how much of this is like literally hallucinations from something they ate maybe, or how much of this is paranoia, or how much of this is actual supernatural activity. Hit me with some of this story, Taylor. Did you like that mind play? Did it surprise you ever? Where did it catch you off foot? What do you think?
Yeah, it is interesting because you do get like the shot of the witch at the beginning. So like you're kind of like, okay, well, there's this thing, but like kind of in the middle of it, you're wondering, well, is she a witch? Is she not a witch? Like, is she to blame? Is she not to blame? So I do like that they play with that. And then, by adding that religious element, which obviously drove a lot of what happened with women being persecuted and women who were independent. And I don't think Thomasin is like, she does adhere to like what her parents say and stuff, but she's obviously strong. She's beautiful, independent. And I think like those women in particular were really targeted for not quite fitting the norm of the times. I don't think she's like as hardcore into like the religious stuff as her mom, even though she's still quite religious. Obviously, if you're getting booted from your religious group because you're being too much, like it's not a good sign. That's a problem. So I think all those dynamics play out, especially with the kind of headbutting between mom and daughter, and different ideologies and stuff. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm always surprised that I don't see more conversation kind of geared around that specifically. Regarding this, did you kind of, regarding like their conflict, and that it not just being like a supernatural thing, but being like kind of, again, like different generations, different ideas, different portrayals of like, you know what I mean? So did you kind of pick up on that, or were you more kind of focused on the supernatural stuff, or did it all kind of intermix for you?
Absolutely intermixed. Part of this, I remember I grew up largely in New England. So I was maybe 45 minutes from Salem, Massachusetts.
I forgot this.
So it was something we talked about in school, and it was kind of a fun part of history. But everyone's
so
familiar,
jealous.
anyways, and I love that this film did such a great job of making it very real how quickly and easily hysteria can build within a family, within a community, which just
Within a religion, all of it,
which
yeah.
goes to show like how these Salem witch trials could have come to bear. It was really powerful, right? You set that against like deeply rooted religious ideas, and it's very easy to see how misinterpreting certain acts or someone accusing someone falsely of witchcraft, or kids just playing a game, or an older sister trying to intimidate
Making a joke.
their younger siblings, how that can quickly spiral out of control. So yeah, this movie, like, upon first viewing, yes, there's that opening shot of the witch flying towards the moon on a broom. And the way it's shot, it's kind of unclear. Like, and you're a little tossed back. Like, was that what I thought it was? And then it moved so far from the witch that you kind of forget about it. And you can buy into this idea that the family's just hysteric, or, maybe there is like this old woman that lives isolated in the woods and is potentially tormenting them, or the old lady herself is like psychotic in a way and stole the baby to grind it up because she actually thinks she's a witch. So I really felt that it did a great job of keeping me on my toes, not knowing until the very end, right? I loved it. I love films like this. You're not.
Oh no, for sure.
Crap talk.
Oh, sorry. I tried to over you there. I also think that there's an interesting dynamic that drives the story, which is the dad's really the folly of man here of being too prideful to accept that he's fucked over his family and does not have the capability of providing for them in a meaningful way. Like, he's not a great hunter. He's not a great provider, which were necessities, especially if you're on your own. And then steals the cup and it doesn't admit it until way later that he did it. So there's already this suspicion on Thomason and this family conflict going on there. And you get the kind of elements too of sexism by like blaming Thomason and saying like she's trying to seduce like her dad and her brother because because she just exists, like she doesn't do anything. But it's so cool to have all these intricate pieces. And then, like you said, so you've got like a family drama at the center of it. And then you like work your way out to this witch story. And then, like you said, there's all this rationale between like what really could have been a logical line of how this actually happened in real life. But then we also get kind of the supernatural. So it's just a very cool melding of ideas that doesn't ever feel like disjointed.
Yeah. Now, in William's defense, Black Phillip
was
sure. For the patriarch's perspective, Black Phillip was sabotaging the crops. The witch was the rabbit, right? At one point,
yes, I believe so, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
in my interpretation of this, so yes, the pride got in the way of him making the right choice to like return to the
many options to go back. Yeah.
But at the very least, he was sabotaged in his ability.
All right, I'll give you that. Maybe, I'm still not convinced, but that he'd been the best.
Obviously, there's hypocrisy between stealing the cup and lying about it and claiming to be this like Puritan. So very clear sins committed against God and family. So I also, to that note, love how everybody has their moments of sin that sort of they're tempted and sort of succumb, right? And you could see how like, you know, it's all feeding upon each other, and it creates this like spiraling effect, which I thought was a lot of fun.
No, I love it. That's a great way to frame it. It's like I said, it's just kind of cool that you can have this family drama and these interpersonal conflicts, and then you pile on the isolation and then the lack of food and all the stressors that go in with it, and still again have this like witch-driven film. Just like I'm very, very impressed that he's managed to pull that off. But I feel like he's able to do that kind of in all of his films. He's able to take two conceptual ideas and meld them together to something really beautiful that again is period accurate in like literally the grossest way possible, like how meticulously this guy operates. Like again, I think I said it at the intro, but we're talking down to like period accurate undergarments, and the house itself was all done
right
old school. Like nothing was
built
you know
using hand tools, right, that were period accurate so that everything in the house looked right. And you know, that is interesting.
Wild.
Like, it is the setting is an important element of this movie. Is one, it portrays the isolation that they are in. They're kicked out of the town walls,
the gated community.
and then
a little different than today, but you know,
right, the gated community, and it is great to see how difficult it is to live in that period, and how that lifestyle, it makes it so visceral for the audience in understanding the character's motivations and how hard it is and how easy it is to blame others for things that go wrong when you're trying everything you can to just survive, let alone like, I don't know, you know, have a thriving farm or something.
And how as a parent do you deal with your baby missing and in that time the easiest outlet, instead of it being like somebody, like something terrible has happened, it's like, well, which must have done it then? It can't feasibly be a person, you know? So that's all pretty interesting to me too.
Yes. That moment of the baby going missing.
Oh God, it's so surprising.
Yeah. The surprise of it was great. Playing the peekaboo, baby's gone. But then the emotional impact of it on the mother was really felt. But what I thought was super interesting was the burying, the graveyard scene, the funeral was one wide shot. You know, the camera was like 300 yards away. It was
my God, you're right.
Shot. You're not shoved into the mom's face, like seeing her crying. It's just, you feel how vast this landscape is, how isolated they are, how alone they are in the moment. The camera's just sitting there, and you just see mom and dad staring down to a grave for their baby. And that is haunting, and you feel the emotion without it being shoved in your face, you know. And I think that this style of filmmaking was like this throughout the entire film.
There's a lot of subtlety in it. You're right. Like everybody is such a good actor and delivers these emotional moments. But like you said, nothing is like, we don't need to have like this guttural, like crying or get a pan in on the face of someone snotty crying. Like they're able to deliver the same emotional punch without going there. And that's also very fucking impressive.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, you know, it's because of the editing choices and the cinematography choices, which I would love to dive into, because this is, like I was saying at the beginning, one of those films that is really part of this like modern wave of filmmaking. It's shot digital on an Arri Alexa, which has a huge dynamic range, which allows you to film in these outdoor settings using a lot of natural light without overexposing, but still at the same time getting those all the shadows and blacks are still in detail, not underexposed. So the modern equipment allows you to move a little lighter, which gives you more time as a director to spend with the actors and focus on what's important, which is the story. But the camera choices I thought were just wonderful. I loved how they his Roger's background coming from the stage. He just lets, Robert Eggers.
Eggers, yeah.
He lets the action play out on screen, right? The camera is still a large part of the time, and it moves with very clear intention for very specific moments. It's not just moving for the sake of movement, like comparing to a movie like 13 Ghosts. It's like the camera's just moving and the edit's just moving for no apparent fucking movement.
What are you talking about? I mean, that was some of the best janky editing I've ever seen in my life. I loved it so much. I just want to be strobed out every single time I watch a movie.
Right. So the antithesis of that, and then really
literally complete opposites that we're dealing with in these last 2 weeks. Yeah.
And then really leaning into that natural light. I love like how they just, it's a dark house lit by candlelight. The lighting was very motivated. A lot of times you're seeing this like kind of this like soft, low fill light come up from beneath the actors, which is kind of an unsettling, unnatural look. That low light, we're used to like that sunlight coming from high, and it's kind of noted for like horror filmmaking, but it's done in a very motivated, cinematic way, which I love. I thought, at times I was kind of wondering like, why didn't they try to expose detail outside the windows? But it's just not really necessary. It's just a subtle detail. Like they just let the windows just blow out to complete white. And at the end of the day, you're kind of feeling the claustrophobia of the space. And they did some other like super interesting things with camera. Like they shot in a 1.66 by 1 aspect ratio, which is a little more square than like your cinematic, like, the most square aspect ratio you tend to see today is like 1.85 by 1, or you're even going to like, something crazy like 2 by 1, which is like super widescreen. But they went, very square, which kind of similar to like Midsommar, I was feeling was motivated by that like storybook feel, that fairy tale feel, or even like medieval paintings or something that, could have inspired that. I think I thought it was kind of a fun choice. And then for supernatural sequences, anything involving the witch, they actually filmed at a frame rate of 27 frames per second instead of 24, which gives it this slight slow motion effect. So there's this like weird ethereal feel to it that separates it from the quality of the rest of the film. I thought they were like super smart choices that really lent it to a strong cinematic style.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed literally everything there. I will say, like, being somebody who is not as familiar with like lighting techniques and specific camera work and stuff, I have to say something that really did interest me is how much they did use natural light. And what I tend to notice often is when you get a horror film and let's say you're watching it during the day or whatever, and you can't see anything at all, and all this stuff is like is all digital. But on this, I didn't struggle to see like any bit of it, and I was really impressed that they were using natural lighting. I truly did not realize that until I read like fun facts after. Like I had no clue, so that was beyond me, but I was super impressed.
Yeah, largely natural lighting, right? Of course, they're going to bring in some lights for food.
Oh yeah, not just
but,
not just like, hey, we're out here.
It's impressive what you can do with a high dynamic range camera and some reflectors. If you also notice, like 99% of this film is shot during overcast days. Right.
I was just, oh my God, you read my brain. That is literally what I was going to say. I was so impressed because it added, it's weird though, because it felt very natural. Like it felt like that's how it probably looked on that day or whatever. It didn't ever feel like they were trying to make something happen. Like, in the early 2000s when they had that like filter on everything to try to make it like kind of gloomy, but it just looks kind of shit. Like, yeah, so this was the opposite of that. It was this very, again, atmospheric is the word I'll use, but it totally added to that feeling. Just that kind of looming, gloomy kind of vibe the whole time. But also, again, you could see everything. It looked really pretty at the same time, but it also felt very isolating in a weird way. Maybe just because there was all those wide shots with the gloomy weather and just seeing that they're the only thing. It's just them and then the woods. There's like nothing else there. Right.
Absolutely. And of course, camera is hand in hand with editing choices. I thought there were some really interesting choices along the way in the edit where one, it was very slow pace. They let the action play out on screen, even in the climatic moments where they're all murdering each other at the end. The camera's largely still and the takes are very long, which is great. Again, that stage quality coming out. But they also rarely showed reaction shots. Like the camera wasn't bouncing around the room. And a lot of times you don't even get an establishing shot of the space to know where people are in relation to each other or see like everything that's going on within the cabin, which kind of created like an unsettling feeling of like, who are they talking to? What are they looking at? And also like a claustrophobic feel inside where you kind of feel like pressed up against each other. You're cramped, juxtaposed to this like isolation that they're also living in, right? It's kind of bizarre. Like you're in a cramped cabin. So you're on top of each other, you're relying on each other, but then you're also completely isolated from society. So it's kind of interesting how that played out, not just in edit and camera, but also in story.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. I think that actually, it's weird. They almost feel like they should work against each other, but they really do work well because it creates this like tension inside of the house and then kind of realizing on the outside that there's really nowhere to go or nothing to do because they're very much alone, and the wide shots really ham that up. I think too what was interesting is when the baby is kidnapped, what they editing wise, what they chose to like show and not show and stuff. Because obviously, I don't think any of us are looking for a baby murderer situation. So I think that's even for horror, that's going a little too far. But even what they did show, I was even just the knife so close to the baby. I was super stressed out watching it, and I kind of forgot about that scene. Like I really honestly in my head was like, oh yeah, like the baby's gone, and then you just cut to whatever. I kind of forgot there were those cuts in the middle of it, but it made it super tense, and I appreciate that they didn't show anything, but you still were really stressed out.
The other thing is you also don't hear anything. The sound design was really interesting too, where they leaned into the score over the sound effects that you would hear within the scene. So when you're seeing the witch like grinding the baby, you're not actually hearing the pounding of the stick, but instead you get this like percussion playing out in the score. It's like dun, 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 and not quite, like not literally like to the beat of her pounding, but very closely and very intentionally, which I thought was very clever way of like, without going so horrific and violent in what they're showing and hearing in camera. It was a clever way of like really like punching you in the face with the emotions of that moment. And they did that, of course, with like the screechy, screaming violins too.
And that choir backing, I don't have a better verbiage for it, but that kind of like, it's a very unsettling like vocalization that I assume it's a group. It doesn't seem like it's a single person doing that. But with all the shots of like, even the shots of the trees and you're hearing that weird kind of banshee-esque like noise, it's just super creepy.
Yes. And I would say that like the screeching violins, the choir, those are choices that can be borderline cliche or be horribly cheesy. This was a movie that got away with it, in my opinion. Right? They the rest of the quality of the the filmmaking quality was just so good that it allows for moments like that to work effectively and not in a hokey way.
Well, because it wasn't every time though either. I think that's the big thing of why that worked too. It really was sparingly, and again, it does give me that Midsommar type vibe. But like when it's utilized, especially like when you're getting this shot of the trees, it feels very off-putting and creepy. But it's not every time that there's something creepy that happens. Like it's not like we cut to the creepy fetus egg things and we get that noise, or it's not, they did it in a way that it didn't feel hokey because it was used sparingly and because of all the atmospheric stuff that you had mentioned just right before. I think that worked quite well to sell it in a good way.
Oh, for sure. I thought one of the best qualities of this movie, besides everything else, but one of the best qualities of this movie was the acting. I was, when you're making choices like static camera, long takes, minimal sound design, you're relying on your actors to take you the rest of the way. And it's difficult, again, to be speaking in this like old world English and dressed in such a period like look to... it helps actors get into their roles, but it also is so easy for that to slip into something that just doesn't work effectively. But these actors just brought it on every level.
Well, they're all like, the thing is now, I guess Anya Taylor-Joy was not as established at the time because this again was like her first, but especially like the parents, like they had both, I think, shown their acting chops like well before this, and are weirdly not people who tend to get like center stage roles. They tend to be like, even in Game of Thrones or The Northman or whatever, they're kind of like the secondary group of characters or whatever. Not saying they don't have good parts and they don't bring it, but it was kind of nice to see them get like more screen time for just them, because I think they're exceptionally talented. Everyone was so believable. I don't think there's ever a moment, I cannot believe that the younger kids in this have not done anything, like the twins and Caleb. I am shocked because all of them were incredible. And actually, I think Caleb, to me, was a little all-star because like he had to do these kind of unhinged speeches when he comes back from the woods.
Yeah, he had like full monologue moments.
Death monologue. He had a death monologue. Yeah. Like, that's amazing.
That was one of my favorite moments of the movie, actually. You start getting all this like religious iconography coming in. During that scene, he coughs up that apple, right? Like sort of that like Garden of Eden apple, and he's revealed to us fully naked. as he's like coming out of the Garden of Eden or something, and he's eaten the apple, if you will, of temptation or sin, and then as he's like repenting and praying or whatever it is, he like rises up in almost this like Christ-like crucifixion pose, and it's a moment that's like
100
could potentially be so almost like the movie Mother, where it's like so like over the top in its like religious archetypes and critique, in an overly dramatic and intentional way. Like this could have gotten borderline cheesy again, but I felt like it was just such a like wild moment, and the acting was so good from a child, that they just fucking got away with it. And it was a great like long take where the camera's like dialing back as he's like losing it, and then he like rises up to like meet God, and the camera slowly pushes back, and then so slow, like again, like those notes of a fine wine, just seeping forward. Man, I love myself a slow dolly move. And they got away with it.
It was very well utilized in that, but I think, like you said, that you're so engrossed in what he's saying. I don't even think that you can like be taken out of it. Like you said, the imagery is definitely there, but I think you're like so engrossed in what's going on, and the camera does really help with that, and the acting really helps with that you're just in that moment. And I think everybody is able to deliver on that point. And the other thing I like is no character motivation feels unrealistic to me. Like, it's hard with the kids because you're like, were they talking to Black Phillip? Maybe they were talking about Black Phillip, but they're also like little shitty kids because, of course, they're toddlers. Like, they suck. Like, it's fine. That's what little kids are, annoying, and they poke at their sister and whatever. So I feel like everyone's motivation feels very authentic to like a real family dynamic. And obviously the all-star is Anya Taylor-Joy because she can literally do any role and be so good in it. And I'm just sad that she doesn't want to watch this again because she thinks she did a bad job, because that's stupid, quite frankly. So she's amazing. I know.
And I love that she was cast for this. I think Robert Eggers was saying that he just really felt like her character as an actor is someone that could never be a Puritan, right? So she's cast as this like juxtaposition to what the family wants to be, hopes to be, wants her to be. And she just is this like round peg and is trying to fit into this square hole, and it's not working. And so that creates.
But she's trying, like you said.
She's trying, but it just creates that like headbutting, that clash, in a great way. A funny tidbit I learned from some behind the scenes is that Robert Eggers had kind of a difficult time directing the children, and leaned into Ralph Ensign, his ability to sort of like help guide the children along it. And maybe I thought it was Ralph. I could be wrong. Somebody else was sort of doing more of the directing of the children because they just had more experience with kids. And it was pretty funny to listen to some of these scenes as they're like just letting the camera run and guiding the kids through their takes. It was really funny because the kids, they're kids. They try their best, but they're not always certain what you're trying to get at. And as a director, someone that's tried directing actors that are not good, when you hit that roadblock of why can't I reach them and like figure out, it's so hard. And you want to give up, but I thought it was really funny that some other people sort of stepped in to kind of get the kids.
That is so funny. I had not heard that. That's amazing.
Like stop looking here. Like stop pretending to eat the food and actually eat the food. It's like funny little things.
Oh my god.
But I mean, I think the real winner in the tough acting is Philip. Our goat.
I think there's
The
something
goat is
kind
goat.
of perfect about that in a way. And like the thing that I had read was saying like a lot of the shots where the goat's antagonizing any family member, like that wasn't scripted. That was just the goat being an asshole. And then we just went with it because we couldn't get this goat to cooperate. I think it's the best, truly. I think that just is so perfect. That the goat, I guess all the other animals were like, great. This goat was not. Amazing.
I love it. I love that the goat was the devil. And one of my favorite moments in the movie is when the goat transforms into the human devil character, Lucifer. I thought was a practical effect moment that was super effective. You know, you literally are just seeing like one leg walking forward, which is a goat, and then another leg walking forward, which is a human. And that's all it is. And it totally sold the moment of this like magical transformation where this goat becomes a human character. Was really effective and really fun.
I love that entire sequence, to be honest. The whole, her just being like, okay, all right, we're going to try this. We're going to see, does this goat talk? And then for him to offer her probably what she's been wanting or needing for a really long time, which is really just to like be independent, be like a young lady living her life, not stifled by religion or stifled by family expectation. She's kind of free of that burden. And in a way, like, in a sick and twisted way, I'm like, this is kind of a victory lap for her. Like, at the end where I'm like, good for her. She's
living her best life.
She's living her best life.
Eating
She's
butter.
levitating. She's gonna be eating butter. She's gonna be having a good day now. You might have to sacrifice some babies, and that might mean not great. But aside from that, like, we're good.
We're all overpopulated anyways, you know, so. Yikes. All right. Oh, man. What did you think of the ending? How did that work for you?
I liked it a lot. Like, I think, again, we just keep bringing up Midsommar, but I think in Midsommar, there's a very, like, interesting discussion of, like, is this somebody who's broken or is this somebody who's triumphant? Where I think in The Witch, it feels a little bit more clear, and that even though she's signing into, again, a kind of sketchy agreement, and who knows what this means, I think because you're seeing her mistreated despite her doing her best and really trying to do the things for the family, and it's never enough, and she's getting blamed for everything just because, again, she exists as a female. She's being blamed because she exists as an independent, beautiful female and is young, and all that is being used against her, and she's gonna get traded away, or she's to blame for this and that. So to have this end where she's with this group of only women, and it really feels like there's this like freedom from all of it, in this very literal sense of undressing, throwing off that burden, and ascending into the air. It just kind of feels like this moment that you're like, good for her. I guess that's how I feel. I mean, how did you feel about the ending?
Oh, man. I loved the story arc, but I was also sort of like holding out, like, is this real? Are there real witches? Or is this all hysteria in her mind or something? But, you know, she's come to this point where her family's been murdered. She murdered her mother. And
self-defense. In self-defense.
But, you know, psychologically, that is like traumatizing. You know, now she's talking to a goat and signing her soul over to a goat, you know, ostensibly, and wandering off into the woods naked. So, you know, has she lost her mind, or is she, you know, truly has sold her soul? Is kind of fun to just question. And I think the best moment was watching that like euphoria wash over her when she joins the coven. And then I was like maybe a little taken back when they start floating in the air. Like, have we jumped the shark in some way? But it kind of heightened that like supernatural element, or the like like the uneasy quality of the moment in a way that was disturbing and conflicting, and kind of like created more of these notes to savor.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was funny because I wasn't even questioning. Like, I think if it was more ambiguous, it would be more depressing. Do you know what I mean? Like again, I just feel like she's victimized very early on. She's blamed for everything throughout the whole film, even when there are legitimate culprits, like her dad taking the thing and not admitting it until way later, and all this other stuff where it's like she's just constantly put down, like all of the time. And it's like just this kind of nice thing to see her literally lifted up, by these other women, or with these other women, and to be like, this is not going to be her world anymore. And as you said, she's someone who didn't even fit in that world to begin with. It was just constantly pushed down, and to be up and whatever. I think it was kind of cool to not leave it on an ambiguous tone, and to just be like, yeah, shit, that's the devil and there are witches. Like, there's no, it's there. It's very blatantly the situation.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't have much more to say. Like, Robert Eggers, it's his first feature film debut, crushed it.
Holy crap.
$4 million budget. I know the set was minimal, so it didn't require an enormous budget, but still, like, a really amazing quality of filmmaking, given the budget, given his immature experience. I'm blown away.
No, I mean, I don't know how you come out with a stronger start, to be honest. I don't think he could have done much more to make this a better film. I don't have many criticisms, as I said. I think it's just exceptionally well done with a really good cast. It's really great camera work, great editing choices. The soundtrack backs everything up that you're supposed to be feeling. Again, that unsettling feeling. There's a lot thematically going on there, and you can pull it in so many different directions and it still works. And again, these conflicting ideas, or different ideas, not necessarily conflicting, that meld so well together. Like, again, we're watching a family drama, but it's just in the 1630s, like, and then there's the witch element, but it all works together so well. And then I've just been impressed with what he's continued to do. The Lighthouse is one that's absolutely on our short list to cover because it is such a good movie. I feel like this one almost could have been in black and white and worked as well. I mean, it didn't have to be, but I think it could have been.
That would have been
good.
I do know the filmmakers, the DP and Robert Eggers were kind of maybe upset they chose to shoot digitally and not on film, but I think it worked well, using the choice of an aspect ratio, low saturation, kind of low contrast. It had a little bit of a filmic like quality to it, without pretending to be something that it wasn't. So, I thought I'm interested to see what they have done on film, because I have not yet. So, definitely looking forward to more of the
I am so excited for us to cover The Lighthouse then, because it is it's that meticulous detailing, period accuracy, great acting. I just think it's really cool. And I know The Northman wasn't everybody's favorite film. I personally really enjoyed it. I do understand the criticisms of why not everybody could get into it, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what he continues to do throughout his career, especially with using these new ideas, like you said, using these kind of like limited people and really relying on natural light and stuff, but then having it set against these really period specific things, I think is just such a cool mix. So I hope he continues to do that. I'd also be really interested to see him cover something in the modern era and seeing what he can do with that. So hopefully that's coming. But yeah, what are your last takeaways of this very short list, top tier best films for you? What's your last takeaway for our audience here?
I hope that it's up in everybody's favorites of horror films. This, I think's up there in like alongside some of the classics for me that I love. You know, this is probably in my top 10 horror. So I hope everybody else feels the same way. I understand if you don't, but definitely looking forward to more from this crew, and I hope you all can stick around for more critique from us.
That's right, guys. We got a couple weeks left in spooky season, and we still got some great movies coming your way. So we are super excited to continue this on. We hope you guys are having an amazing October. Quite frankly, it's moving too fast, and I'm already getting sad. I'm already sad. We're like halfway over it, but keep watching those spooky movies. There's a lot of great content out, and keep giving us a listen. And we got some more great movies and cocktails coming your way. So use those on Halloween and enjoy what is left of spooky season.
Absolutely. Well, happy Halloween, y'all, and we will see you next week.